Hello everybody, this is Laurie Larson and I'm here to talk to you. Today is, as I'm filming this, is June 27th, 2019. Look at my calendar over there. And I am so excited to announce that my 5th book in my Murrells Inlet Miracle series, Seized, is getting ready for publication. So it's been through the whole process of, first draft, second draft, third draft. I mean, it's been looked at a million times, and now I am confident that I'm going to be sending you out a really good read. This book had its beginning, I think I started writing it around tax day in the middle of April, and I wrote a little bit, maybe, 2 chapters, and then my son was getting married. And it embarked us on I think it was 3,200 mile road trip where we drove from South Carolina to Illinois for the wedding, stayed there about 4 or 5 days. And then we drove from Illinois to Dallas, Texas, where my son and his new bride live, because while they were on their honeymoon, we had agreed to stay there in their house and watch their dog. So we did that for a while. And then we drove from Dallas to back to South Carolina. So it was a 2-week trip covering, I think it was 15 states, 3,200 miles. And I brought my manuscript or my laptop along. And although I didn't get a whole lot of writing done on it, I did have the story started. And then I ended up finishing it, just putting my head down, and, once the story comes to me, I just have to keep writing until it's done. And that's what happened with this. The Spirit kind of took a hold of this book, and oh my gosh, I am so happy with how it turned out. First of all, it's about Gloria, who you met in book 3, Crescendo. Remember, Crescendo is about Blake, primarily Blake and Haley, but also Blake's brother Brent. They were in a terrible house fire when they were teenagers, and it killed their parents. And so their Aunt Gloria stepped in and raised them as her own children. Well, that was such a selfless, generous thing for her to do. So we already know she makes a wonderful, selfless character. So now, as you saw in Crescendo, the boys are doing well. They're off on their own. They're independent. Everything's going great for their lives. Now, book 5, which is Seized, picks up on Gloria's story. It's her empty nest story. The kids are out of the house. Now what do you do? It's time to live your own life again and do those things that really mean a lot to you. It's the stage of life I'm in right now. I've been in for a few years now. It's wonderful as long as you have something in your life that makes you satisfied and fulfilled. It's easy to sit there and just miss your kids and to dream about the way things used to be when you were raising a family. And I loved raising my family. But you know what? This next chapter in life is absolutely wonderful, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And as a result, I have 2 wonderful independent children who we see as often as we can, we speak to, we have fun with, but we also have this whole other life. So that's the story I'm telling with Gloria. And so Gloria ends up, and I won't give you a lot of details about how, because it is kind of a really neat story, but she ends up meeting this man who, he's about her age, and he's never been married, and he's been married to his job, basically. He's a cop, and he's doing, he's been a beat cop, he's been a detective, now he's doing crime scene investigation, CSI. Why did I decide to make the hero a cop? Well, one of my obsessions, recent obsessions, for me and my husband both, we sit down and watch all these true crime shows. At any given time in our DVR list, we have multiple episodes of Dateline, 2020, 48 Hours. We also discovered on Investigation Discovery Channel a retired homicide lieutenant named Lieutenant Joe Kenda, and he has a really cool series called Homicide Hunter, and we watch it all the time. And when you've watched 200 or more of these episodes, you have it in your mind that, you know, you could probably be a detective yourself. So I wanted to incorporate my love for true crime with this character. But I didn't want something as deep and dark and ugly as a homicide, because of course my stories are heartwarming, life-changing, you know, very light, but, you know, not as dark as homicide. So I came up with this idea of the Seashore Snatcher, who in Myrtle Beach area was a notorious, had a crime spree of robberies and seizing, snatching things. And he'd got more and more careless and reckless as he expanded his reign of terror of just stealing things. And Alejandro, who is our hero in this story, captured him 6 years ago. He was the lead detective on the case. He put him away in jail, but he did it in a way that made him feel terrible and guilty that he hadn't caught him soon enough, because the Seashore Snatcher, which is the moniker that this man, you know, gave himself, started getting so reckless that he was shooting people and hurting people. And that was something that Alejandro really took to heart and said, boy, if I had done my job better and if I had caught him sooner, those people would have been spared those injuries and the terror of being shot by a criminal. Well, as we open up this story, the Seashore Snatcher has escaped from prison. And so Alejandro is going to get his second chance at, you know, doing this thing again, and hopefully doing a little bit better so that, you know, he can put this criminal away before he starts injuring people. Well, because he's met and started a relationship with Gloria, he inadvertently leads the Seashore Snatcher right to her door and places her in danger. And an issue that the two of them have been dealing with in their relationship, the fact that she is a very devoted Christian and has a walk with Jesus in her life daily, and Alejandro is not. He does not have his own faith in God. It gives them the opportunity to continually draw on the strength and power of Jesus and God to help them in this very dark and desperate time of their lives. And I think that the story ends up being very full and exciting and heartwarming for all of you. So I'm very excited about the story. I knew when I was writing it and then when I finished it that it was something special. And right now, at, you know, a week and a half before release, my advanced reader review team is reviewing it, is reading it. And I've got some really fantastic comments from them. One reader said, it's got everything. It's the perfect book. It's got love. It's got romance. It's got God. It's got best friends, because there's a really awesome best friend relationship in this story. And it's got suspense and mystery. So it's got a little bit of everything. And I'm so thrilled and pleased with, well, of course, they're my advanced review team, so they love my books already. That's a prerequisite for being on the team. You have to love my books. But the fact that this one, several of them have said already, this is the best book you've ever written. And you may have known this year was kind of a magical year for my book Crescendo, because it won 2 major international awards for quality in both religious fiction and inspirational romance fiction. And I was absolutely thrilled with that. And this book, Seized, is basically a sequel of Crescendo. So I'm hoping, because it takes Gloria and Blake and Brent's story and continues it on. So I'm hoping that Seized will be embraced like Crescendo has been, and that it will basically ride on the magical trail that Crescendo has blazed. So, so what's the significance of the title? So, you know, for this whole series, I had one-word titles. So Sanctuary was book 1, Restoration was book 2, Crescendo was book 3, Capsized was book 4, and now coming into book 5, I needed a title. And for each and every one of those titles, I wanted something significant that told the story, but I also wanted it to be relevant in more than one way. So for example, Sanctuary. Nora, the lead character, the heroine, inherits her aunt's house, and she decides to use it as a sanctuary for horses, and also to help, you know, to start up a not-for-profit charity organization to help Dress for Success, to help young women who are trying to make their way in the work world develop a wardrobe for work. So, you know, there's more than one reason to call it restoration, because it also restores that whole story, restores her lifestyle, which, you know, as a busy downtown Philadelphia lawyer, her life was so busy that she didn't have, her career was so busy, she didn't have time for her own life. So it restored her life to God and to doing things for others and so forth. And of course, the romance also helped restore her. So that's just an example of how I really want the titles to be significant and relevant to the story in more than one way. So I chose Seized because the seashore snatcher is a robber, is a burglar. So he's been seizing property all along the way of the story. But also included in the story is Alejandro's journey to find God and to become a Christian and develop his own faith. And this is not something that he came at willingly. He came at it through Gloria and her influence and her powerful faith that she had that kind of rubbed off on him. So his life, this terrible thing that has happened in his past that he was felt so much guilt for, that he could not forgive himself for. The only way that he could live a better life and be forgiven for this thing that he had been beating himself up about for so long was to accept Jesus and to open himself up to the peace that passes all understanding, as we learn about in the Bible. And so in that way, I felt like God, the love of God, has seized him and transformed him into a whole new person. So anyway, that's the reason I called it Seized. And my mother has called it, accidentally on more than one occasion, Seizures. No, it's not Seizures. It's Seized. So it's another one-word title. And then that's it. This is the very end of Murrells Inlet Miracles. This is the finale. All the stories are loosely related to each other, although each one could be read as a standalone. And but this one definitely ties right into Crescendo. So I highly recommend that you read Crescendo first and then Seized, if you haven't read Crescendo yet. So anyway, it's going to be out July 9th, 2019. It will be available on all ebook retailers and paperback. I am working, one of my goals this year is to get a book out in audiobook. I have never done that before, so I'm going to try it. If the first one goes well, I think I will try to get the entire Murrells Inlet Miracle series on audiobook, but that's something that will be for not this year, much later, maybe next year. So, okay, that's all I have for you today. I'm really excited about offering you this really great installment, the finale of my series, and I hope you love it as much as I do. Okay, have a great day. Bye.